Okay, I got a question. A few videos ago, I think it was either the center video that I did, the centering video I did, or the pulling walls video I did. Someone had asked, could you make a video for opening clay once you have it centered on the wheel? They're struggling with that, so I'm gonna throw this whole piece here from start to finish. I'll make a finished piece, but I'm gonna focus on opening the clay once you have it centered. So if you're looking for the help on opening clay once it's centered, you might have to skip forward in the video a little bit because I'm going to go through the whole throw for this piece, but I'm going to focus especially on opening the clay once it's centered. So get your, see, my bat's not on 100% correctly, so that's okay. You can move your bat around still. Now I can feel it on both pinholes. There we go, we're good. So get your clay on your wheel head here, and I'll quickly go over other things too, like pulling walls and centering, but I'll focus mostly on opening. So first thing to go over centering, get your clay fixed on the wheel, give it a slap or two, and then first thing we're going to look to do is seal the bottom or the skirt of this ball clay onto the wheel head, so you can put force on it without having to worry about it flying off the wheel head, okay? So first things first, I'll just go down at once with my fingers. Not arguing with it too much, not going crazy trying to, shape the whole ball in one pass. As you can see, the clay is kind of skirted out there, and you're pretty sealed there now. The clay is pretty fixed on the wheel head, okay? So, especially with a larger piece of clay like this, don't argue with it too much. It's going to take more, slowly work on it, a lot of passes, okay? So I'm going to start coning up. Now your clay being centered when you're coning up does not matter. You might get a little bit of a spiral. You'll see one forming here. That's okay. That you're gonna fix this when you're coning down. So just really what you want to focus on is stretching this clay up. Stretching it out by coning it up, okay? You're kind of stretching while they're together, obviously. Stretching the platelets of clay up and out as much as you can. And once you got it stretched out, pulled up enough, we're at an angle. We're going to push down into the center, one hand supporting, one hand on top. Take your time in a slow, steady movement. Move down the clay. This is where you're starting to center and really homogenize and compress your clay. Okay? Push, 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 push. Okay. Now this is a really big piece of clay, so, relatively, so I'm going to cone it up and down one more time. I'll just do it without talking this time. This part of centering, and when you're beginning with a piece of clay this size, you really want to anchor and brace. And get that wheel spinning. Let it spin. Okay, so now we are all the way centered here, all the way compressed. Here is where you'll start to open up. You need to open up this piece of clay. So, kind of just like trimming or other aspects of throwing, how you decide to do this, it is personal. Some people I see honestly open up with their thumbs like this. They start pressing in with their thumbs. I never use my thumbs to open up a piece of clay. It just, I don't do it. What I like to do is similar to holding a tool when trimming or when throwing up your walls, is support your hands together, and not at 3 o'clock, in about halfway, and then from the center, this area right here, if I can mark on the clay a little bit. Okay, this area right here, where I just am moving this little bit of clay off the top. This is where I'm going back and forth, and I'm trying to push that all together at once, okay? Instead of just having one finger dig into the center of this thing, the problem is you don't know how deep you are when you do that. So you're gonna lose a lot of pieces just digging one finger all the way through to the back, doing it this way. So what I tend to do is I support fingers together directly in the center, and these 3 or 4 fingers together right here all push together in this area where I was talking about, okay? So while I'm doing that, the base of the palm wraps around the clay, and I'm controlling the clay, okay? One big thing I see when people are opening or doing anything, when it comes to the clay, you want as much of your body in contact, as much of your hands in contact with the clay as possible. The more skin you have in contact with this clay, the more control you'll have over it. So whether you're using your thumbs, which is fine, if you do it with your thumbs and you find that you like your thumbs, that's fine. Pick whichever fingers and whichever way you like. But the point is make sure you're moving out this whole piece of clay together. Okay? Make sure we're not digging so far down that we go right through to the center of the bat. And make sure that these hands are supported. Okay? That's what's really going to give you the ability to aggressively push through this clay quick enough, okay? And accurately enough without pushing all the way through to the bat, like I said. So here we go. These 4 fingers together, controlling the whole piece of clay as much as possible, compressing and letting these be what'll happen if you just push too hard with just your fingers or just your thumbs or anything like that is the clay will mushroom out. Just the top of it will mushroom out, and you'll have a very inconsistent piece of clay. So what you really want to do is controlling the clay as much as possible with the rest of your hand. Take the fingers you need and push down into the center. And if you got to go back and forth a little bit while you do this, that's fine too. Push a little down, pull it back. Push a little down, pull it back. Push a little down and pull it back. Okay? And don't be shy. I'm putting some good pressure on this right now, and I'm keeping my hands as, relatively still. If the clay is moving your hands, if your hands have any kind of wobble to it, like let's say for example, no, I didn't really do it great there, did I? Now that has some wobble to it. Do you see the wobble there? Now you see how my hand is wobbling with the clay. Now I'm just gonna make my hand, I'm gonna make sure my hand is tight now, and the wobble will kind of disappear. So really make sure you're bracing, and whether you're throwing, trimming, or you're opening up, the big thing is to control the entire piece of clay while you're doing it as much as possible. You don't want to do anything just from up here pressing or not in contact with the clay as much as possible. More contact equals more control. So work your way down, and if you have a little bit of wobble, like see that little bit of wobble right there, that's okay. Keep opening the clay, keep your hand still, and let the clay work itself out. If you have proper technique, at one point or another you're gonna get this clay centered, and you're gonna be able to remove that wonkiness in it, okay? When you're first starting, a lot of times you'll get to this point and you'll think the piece is doomed, but you still have a lot of leeway even once you've opened up the piece of clay here, you still have leeway to get this clay, the rest of the clay centered as you pull it up. Okay? So you want to get your clay to about this point. And one thing you can do to double check, did I go far enough or did I not go far enough? I've talked about this in another video I made. I'm not a biggest fan of doing this, but when you're first starting, and if you're not as worried about keeping your pieces as full finished pieces, check with a needle tool. push the needle tool down into the clay, push it down, then bring your finger to the top of the clay. And what's left on top of your finger is how much clay you have left. So I have 3/4 to a full inch left. I'll give it one more little pass here, but if it's a little bit thick there, that's okay. It's going to be a big piece. It's going to need foundational integrity, and it's also going to be trimmed. So I'll be able to, if there really is excess, then I'll be able to trim it out at that stage, because trimming is where you'll get a lot more refinement in your form. You got to remember, when you're when the clay is all wet on the wheel right now, you're not going to have perfect tertiary details of every little thing. There's a lot of refining that goes into the trimming stage. Okay, now you have your clay open. You're ready to start pulling your walls. Just like I had sort of just alluded to too, just like a painter, one saying in painting is work from general to specific. What you really want to do here is work from general to specific. You don't need to worry about having the outside surface of your vase or mug, whatever, perfectly smooth and clean when it's at this state. You need to get the clay stretched out into the primary form, which is an open cylinder, right? So right now, I'm not so worried about it being perfect to go onto the drying rack. I'm not worried about the cleanliness of the outside edge. I'm more worried about the workability and the level of moisture in the clay, okay? So first things first, you know, a lot of people, I have pretty strong fingers, and I use a sponge a lot to throw. At this point, if you're not comfortable with using a sponge, or you don't like the tips of your fingers for large amounts of clay like this, use this knuckle right here. Bend your finger and use this knuckle. Let the finger on the inside push the clay out, and this knuckle should be right under it, pulling directly up towards the ceiling. So wait until this inside hand, you'll see on the outside here, starts expanding out. Once that happens, just move both hands, support it together, move them up the piece of clay. And that actually is a good way to, the more knuckle you get into it, like if you bend your finger and really use this sharp knuckle, the side of the lateral edge of the sharp knuckle on your finger, you're going to move a lot more clay quicker. Okay, and here's one thing too, when you go to throw these walls, there's a difference between the angle of your fingertip on the clay, okay? This finger, see, it's broad against the clay right here, broad. The entire surface area of my fingertip is not going to move as much clay as if the very, very tip of the fingertip will. So the more aggressively you want to get into the clay, make the point that your finger is touching the clay smaller. The smaller the surface area on the clay, the more you're able to dig in on that one spot and really pinch. The broader your fingertips are on the clay, the less you're going to move it, and the more you're going to be smoothing that clay out. Okay? You know what, I'd compare it to sanding. Like, the lower the grit something has, the more it's going to take off, and the higher grit it has, the smoother it's going to be, but it's going to be less aggressive. So same sort of thing. When you have your finger broad on the clay like this, it's like a high grit sanding, and when you have the very tip of the finger digging into the clay, that's like low grit. That's like you're really moving a lot of clay there, okay? So you know what, I'll do a throw like that right now. So I'll just collar it in just a little bit. And what I'm going to do is this time, instead of using the knuckle, like you could give it another pass with just like your knuckle how I just did. But one thing I'm going to do is instead, at this point, I'd probably just use my fingertips. And honestly, for this pull, I would use the sponge and really digging the very tip of the fingertip through the sponge. So here we go. So as you can see, the inside hand is pushing the clay out. You can see the clay starting to expand. And you can feel the clay in that pinch being stretched out, basically. You can feel the clay having to compress to fit through the space between your fingers. That's what you want. When you feel that, it's like sliding. It's like a sliding sensation. The clay is sliding through your fingers and compressing at the same time. So now, at this point, I'd say you have the clay. It's pretty open, it's pretty stretched out, and you're starting to gain height on this, right? So now I'm gonna get rid of the sponge and stuff like that. I'm gonna give it a couple, you wanna give it a couple pulls with just your fingers to really feel how much do I have left in the base, and you know, how thick are the walls as they are right now. Just make sure I'm still in the shot here. Yep, I got a little more room, right? I have to zoom out a little bit. Okay, so I'll give it one more pass. Well, maybe more than one more pass, but I'll just give it passes, not using the sponge or anything else, just with the very, very tips of my fingertip. I'm really letting the clay expand out and pushing straight up towards the ceiling now. And I mean, that was, you should be able to have been able to have seen from that pull, is that when you have your nothing's going to give you more a more aggressive dig into the clay and a more aggressive pull than just using your fingers and really using the fingertips of those fingers. Okay. So I'm gonna take this rim down. So this rim is just a mess. You can feel it's a little bit thinner under here and thicker over here. So that's something I'm not great at. I gotta get better at is just my ear touch as you get towards the top of the clay. As you can see, it's a lot thinner here. I don't want it to get any thinner than this. This is a good thickness right here. At least for the rim, right? You want a nice rim. The rims are gonna give you the most trouble when it comes to firing. Like, your rims are the most sensitive part of the piece. So pay attention to them. Compress them, like I'm doing right here. Every now and then, just take your rim and compress the clay in the top of it. Okay, so I'll open this clay up. Maybe I'll make a wave. I'll make this kind of a widely open vase with the diameter. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna push a little harder with my inside hand now, and you'll see this starts to take a contour to it. And then now I want to bring it back in to give it a neck. I'll push back in with my outside hand a little harder. And then back up. It was very subtle. It wasn't a very aggressive shaping there, but you can start to kind of see this contour that's coming to this vase here. And we'll give it another pass like that. I'll make it a little more, I'll give it a little more contour now. Ready? Is pretty significantly like open, wide vase at the top, wide mouthed. More than I'm used to for my work, but it's okay. So as you can see with the inside hand, the more pressure you put on the inside, the more you're going to get this sphere, or you're going to get the clay expanding out, and you're going to get contour and shape to your vase or your piece, whatever it is. One thing to remember though is the more you expand this clay out down here, the less structural integrity it has. So because the clay was kind of thick at the bottom, I could really stretch this out and it still stands up. But be careful doing that. If your clay is too stretched out and then you also go to give it contour at the base, it's gonna have no foundation and just flop the whole thing. So it's very touchy. You just have to practice, and you just have to really know your clay. All right, so we're there. The rim's a little uneven. I took all the moisture off the outside of this right now because I'm gonna add slip texture. So I got a bucket of the same clay, watered down to a buttery. It's like butter. I don't know, butter. I'll just stick with butter. I'll just stick with whipped butter. I got it to that consistency though, if you can see that. And while my hand is supporting on the inside too, because you don't want to warp the shape too much, I'm just going to slowly, and when the moisture is gone off of the surface of this will just, like the slip will just stick onto the surface. Alright, and then I just take what I do for slip texturing. I love to take a tool like this and I just run it through, texture it, excuse me. So it's kind of touchy. I get the wheel right, just to the right speed, and then don't hesitate, just go for it. Oh. And then whatever movement you make on that first pass, just keep giving it smooth and steady. Same movement, boom, 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 boom. Last one, boom. You know what? You'll get in a rhythm of doing that. Sometimes, honestly, I even believe the faster you can do it steadily and quality, the better that the actual slip on the outside will look after. But that's neither here nor there. Or get the rim a little wet. Okay, you know what? Actually, what I'd love to talk about too. I hope it's in frame. Yep, we're good. What I like to talk about too is rims. People are so crazy about their rims, okay? One big tool for cleaning your rim is this needle tool. Learn how to use this needle tool. You can clean any rim so quickly. I see potters, they just don't fix their rims. And they're experienced potters, all these followers and everything, and they don't know how to clean a rim up. I don't get it. Anyways, get up as high as you can. Get to where the clay is consistent and where you want to take off maybe that little bit of extra clay at the top that's not quality, and put your finger on it ever so lightly and just keep your finger there. Now same thing, choke up on the tool, support your hands together, and bring the needle tool slowly to your other hand. Let the wheel spin here too. Don't be, I'm always too shy. Get the wheel spinning. Now slowly bring the pin tool to your hand. Now when you feel the pin tool touch your finger, stop the wheel. Pull straight up. Put your finger through the hole, and most times it's as simple as that. Put that right in your recycle bucket. Now get a little water on the tip of this rim. This is gonna help. I take blue shop paper, this right here. This works better than anything. Don't go buy whatever, cashmere and all this stuff that people have for this. You don't need nothing fancy. Even white paper towel works just fine. Fold it up into a square, into a rectangle. Dip the rectangle in water, make sure it's saturated, and hold it over that rim. Let the wheel spin, let the rim shake. It's that simple. It's going to give you a much better rim. Okay. Last little thing here is I'll take this tool and just kind of clean this up. This is not super important, but I don't know, I just like doing it. Makes it simpler when you go to trim, gives you less trouble, helps you center, blah, blah, blah. Not a huge deal. But I like to do it before I get the pieces off the wheel. Give it a look, clean it up at the bottom. And there you go. All right, if you have any more, I know that was kind of loose and I just talked through the whole pieces I made it. I also know I'm not scripted. I say a lot. I noticed that. I watched the video back the other day and I'm like, geez, I gotta cut that out. I just said it again. But I'm not thinking about, you know, I took a public speech class once in college, and I'm not really thinking about all that. I'm just talking, I'm just thinking out loud while I'm on the wheel. So I apologize for that. It'll get better as I make more videos. I know it will. And please, if you have any questions or comments, I made this video today because someone left a comment saying they were having trouble opening, centering clay. So same person, if you're watching this video and that wasn't in depth enough on opening, I understand. I was just kind of thinking out loud. So let me know. I'll make another one more in depth if needed, or if you're having anything else you're struggling with, please leave a comment, like, subscribe, and I'll definitely make a video for you. Last thing, wire, get the wheel spinning a little. I got one more thing for you. Last thing, wire, hold it taut, get the wheel spinning slowly, and don't hesitate. There you go, you're done. All right, thanks for watching.